You're listening to Leaders of AI, the podcast that cuts through the noise to bring you real-world insights, right now applications, and future-shaping breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. Here are your hosts, Julia McCoy and Dave Shapiro. A lot of the predictions Elon Musk said, as of right now, we're actually seeing glimmers of all of it being truth, not hype.
Everything that we've seen over the last, particularly the last 5 years, we're nowhere near the top mathematically of what these things can do.
So we're going to have 3, 4, 5 robots to one human.
If you were to just go back 100 years and give, the United States Army a jet engine, they'd be like, great, what do we do with this? Right? They'd barely figured out how to use helicopters.
You are going to be so much of a faster adapter to everything if you adapt to what's possible now first in your industry. Hey, welcome back to the first episode of Leaders of AI with your host, Dave Shapiro and Julia McCoy here in the new year, 2025. We're recording this as of January 2nd, and we've got a rich episode lined up for you. It's just me and Dave. We're going to share a look back at 2024, some of the things that surprised us, what we see as some of the biggest highlights for you to know about, and then what's coming in 2025. And I have been beyond obsessed because when O3 came out, I think you and I both, Dave, shared the same level of exuberance. Like, what on earth? This happened before 2025. And I have to say, Dave, you predicted this when you said in a YouTube video, I think it was last summer, you were like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw AGI benchmarks passed this Q4. You said it, and you were right. Well, first of all, how does it feel?
Honestly, so looking back, there was a time that I was doubting it because there was this quiet period, this cooling off this past summer. So like summer 2024, where even I was like, man, like, are these studios holding out? Is it getting too expensive? Because the capabilities have been going exponentially, but so have the costs.
Yeah.
And so I was even kind of doubting my own prediction, but then, what was it in October when they dropped O1 preview, and then O3 came out not long after, and that was like not just one step, but that was 2 steps all in one shot, and that was a little bit surprising. But yeah, that it's. On the one hand, it's really validating, just like, okay, the data is the data. That's what I'm always telling people is like, if you've got data, like, lines on a graph, if it's based on real facts, real information, trust that and don't trust your intuition. And that is proving to be like nobody's intuition is correct. And so whenever someone's like, oh, so-and-so is still like 2 decades away, I'm like, buddy, you're not looking at the data. Always trust the data. So that's the number one takeaway in terms of what we saw with O1 and O3 come out this year.
Great stuff.
Or last year.
Yeah, that's a great synopsis. It's interesting to see, I think back there was a report that came out January of 2024, between January and February with 2,700 AI researchers, and it was thousands of AI researchers getting together to predict total automation from Berkeley, UC, Harvard, a UK university, all over the world. Very smart people, and they put the year 2100 on the total automation of all jobs, and that is from writing a Wall Street Journal bestseller to driving a truck, like all jobs. And when you look at the market right now, and you look at the predictions made in 2024 by people like Elon Musk who are building the Tesla bots, by Sam Altman, and you look at what's lining up, there was this concern last year, Elon Musk is just a smokescreen. You can't believe anything he says. But I think something big for me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, I saw was that a lot of the predictions Elon Musk said, as of right now, we're actually seeing glimmers of all of it being truth, not hype. For example, one of the things Elon Musk said is that he said this in April of 2024, and he was laughed at. He said, I think by April 2025, we will see artificial superintelligence. He just leaped over AGI completely. And people are like, that was just for the stock to go up. That was complete BS. But now, as of before the year ended, I think it was December 30th, we saw Logan Kilpatrick, product head at Google, actually say, we can see artificial superintelligence in front of us. And then we had O3 pass AGI benchmarks, also December 2024. So I don't think these people are crazy anymore. What would you add to that, Dave?
I mean, yeah, one thing is taking a step back. Whenever you hear one person make a prediction, even with data, I mean, I can't tell you the number of people that were like freaking out back in 2022 when I said, guys, like GPT-3 is the path to AGI. Like, I was shouted off of the r/singularity subreddit by the admin of that subreddit.
What?
He's like,
I bet they regret that.
He's not a smart and intelligent human being, in my opinion.
Apparently not.
Yeah. So anyways, no, like the thing is what we're really bumping up against is normalcy bias. People have an understanding of how the world is today and how it has been. And the idea that there is a paradigm shift, it results in all kinds of cognitive dissonance and those sorts of things. But when you hear, when it was just Sam Altman saying OpenAI is going to build AGI, okay, great. But then when it's Microsoft, when it's Google, when it's Meta, I mean, I guess Jan LeCun still says AGI is like years away, but Jan LeCun also last year said it was 2 or 3 decades away. So his timelines are shortening exponentially as well.
Yeah, they are.
Wow. So, again, you listen to the people that are literally sinking hundreds of millions of dollars into, the hardware architecture and the training data and the inference or not the inference, but the compute infrastructure to run these. They kind of have they do a lot of cost analysis in terms of, is this going to be worthwhile from an investor perspective? What is the expected ROI? But also the paradigms that we've seen developed over the last really the last 5 years, because, attention is all you need. I think that came out in 2015, 2016, something like that.
Yep.
So this whole thing started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But really everything that we've seen over particularly the last 5 years, we're nowhere near the top mathematically of what these things can do. It's really just a matter of compute and data. And that all comes down to energy and money. I mean, it all comes down to money. And there's a lot of money going into it. And so when you see, like, one of the rules of thumb that I've had for a very long time is where money goes, results follow. We saw that with solar. We're past the tipping point with solar. Because back in 2010, when, solar subsidies started, people like, no, solar's never going to be viable. Just do nuclear. And of course, now solar is like, I don't know, 3 times cheaper, pound for pound than nuclear.
Wow.
So it's like, well, okay, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, when you see this level of consensus, particularly from the leaders of industry, you have a higher degree of confidence that that there's kind of some convergence happening.
Yes, well said. Well, I want to move to one of my favorite posts you made on X. I mean, Dave, you killed it on X this year. I have to say, you're like one of my favorite people to follow. And you know what I like best about your profile? You never know what to expect. I mean that in a very, very good way.
Oh yeah, no, some people say that I'm a little bit of a loose cannon, but you know what? I'm just going with whatever comes up and kind of reacting as things go. That's really what X is good for. It's all just vibes.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think that's what makes it, somebody that I trust and can follow. Because if you were always very stringent in the way you spoke and always, let's say, buttoned up, I would be a little less trustful. I like when people are okay with showing all sides of themselves, especially on the internet where we don't really see that. So one of my favorite posts you made on X was the 31st of December, where instead of a YouTube video, you laid out in this tweet. I mean, and this is what I love about ever since I followed you early 2020, late 2023, early 2024, was like, when you share information, it's so dense. And so this one tweet, I'm like, books of information in 3 paragraphs. So I want to read a little bit of it and then have us talk about it. So you said this December 31st, and he said, all right, dorks, buckle in. We have the timeline mostly figured out. You said 2025 is the year of the agent. This is all but locked in. Agent frameworks, cognitive architectures are on the rise. I thought this piece in particular was really well said. You said we are about to experience the automation cliff, where the automation doesn't do anything until you turn it on, at which point it does everything all at once. That lines up beautifully with what we're seeing at First Movers. The ethos that we have is this 25x approach where we can take one amazing human, and instead of replacing them, we're 25xing their capabilities. So we have business leaders come to us and they want to reduce all the fluff and all the weight of a marketing team that isn't on the same page, doesn't know what each other are doing, and arguably the strategies and the content and what they produce isn't even geared for success. So not only do you have dead weight, but you have this structure that is so archaic. So we take all of that, we look at it, we go, okay, what are the best people here that are closest to the mission of the company, and how do we 25x them? And when we build out processes and turn things on, like bots and the integrations to support that, it's that cliff you talked about. And Dave, that's before agents. So imagine what happens when you add agents to all of that. Now, we'll go back to that in a second, but you also said that 2026 is the year of the robot. Figure is shipping to their first customers the last week of December 2024. Unitree, Boston Dynamics, they're right with them. Figure has done some amazing work. Their robot successfully installed on its own a chassis and a BMW, and now it's going to produce the BMW vehicles. So this lines up as well with what Elon Musk was saying on TechCrunch. He was saying last year, this was crazy at the time. Again, like wild stuff, but we're actually seeing all this wild stuff coming true. He put 2026 right online with your timeline, Dave. He put 2026 on this, what he called high production date of the Optimus robot. And his plan is to sell 20 billion of Optimus. If you think of the iRobot movie, which we all love, pictured 3 humans. Was it 3 humans to 1 robot, or 1 robot to 3? I think it's 1 robot to 3 humans. So it was more humans to 1 robot. But Elon Musk said that the inverse is true. He believes we're going to have 3, 4, 5 robots to 1 human. Because if this thing can clean your house, cook your food, do your laundry, work for you, be deployed at cents on the dollar, why wouldn't you want more of them? So 2026, not decades, not 5 years, even less than that, is when we could see robots deployed at mass production. I mean, imagine 20 billion robots like on the streets. That's crazy. But that could happen in 2026. And then to wrap up, you put 2027 as the year of superintelligence with an asterisk on it, because it won't be ASI proper, but it's the year you're predicting we'll start to see unsupervised recursive self-improvement. All right, so that's the tweet. Let's talk about it.
Excellent. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what we're doing here on this podcast, is we're finding all the people that are really leading the charge.
Yes.
And that's what we're doing as well. We're leading the charge of integration. And part of the reason, so what I want to address first is part of the reason for the asterisk is because basically we've invented the jet engine, but we don't have the rest of the jet fighter yet. Well, that's really kind of where we're at. In terms of AI robotics, because one of the leading robotics companies in the world is Disney, and they keep using their robots for like stunt doubles and animatronics, and I'm like, you guys have literally the most dexterous human-like robots on the planet, and you're using them for entertainment. What are you people doing? So a lot of it is just a matter of creativity, imagination. There is also still a talent shortage to integrate all this stuff. Like every company out there, from startups to enterprises, are finding that there's not enough human talent to integrate these things yet and deploy them. So that's one of the biggest bottlenecks, which is that's our mission. One of our main missions with First Movers is one, just inform people with this podcast, but also you've got all the labs coming up and everything, because until it's over, we need more people involved. So the reason that that's all to provide some context. The reason that I put the asterisk as 2027 is because that's about when it looks like everything's going to converge with the models, the base models. So that's when, like, assuming that OpenAI doesn't change the naming scheme again, that's when we would expect to see like 04 or 05, like the next full leap is about 2 years from when GPT-4 came out to '01. So that was about two solid years. So if we take that again, then the next iteration, the next turn of the crank is going to be when the IQs of these things are measured in the 150s to 160s. So that's the top like 0.05% of all humans. And that at that point, that is going to be as intelligent as the best AI researchers that most companies have, which means they're going to be world leading experts in all math. They're going to be world leading experts in all computer science. And so then you combine that baseline model capability with, we have the next 2 years to integrate agents and agent frameworks and multi-agent frameworks. That's when we're basically going to be handing the keys over and saying, okay, we're just going to watch. You guys take it from here. So that's when 2027, that's really kind of what I'm looking at as the tipping point to not just developing smarter models, but where that level of research kind of takes over on its own. There's still going to be some bottlenecks and constraints on, like, what is the Project Orion or Stargate? All the big giant data centers, they're not going to come online until 2029. Yeah. So there's not even going to be enough capacity to run superintelligence at full bore for a while. So that's why there's a little bit of an asterisk. But in the meantime, yes, this year, 2025 is agents. Microsoft, Google, Meta, every major tech provider and every startup is working on agents and agent frameworks, whether it's deploying them, because it's one thing to have a service, but again, if you were to just go back 100 years and give, the United States Army a jet engine, they'd be like, great, what do we do with this? Right? They'd barely figured out how to use helicopters. I guess even 100 years ago, we didn't have helicopters yet. Anyways, my point being is we have the power plant, we have the brain, now we need the rest of the body. And so that's where integration comes in over the next couple of years.
Beautifully said. You brought up a great point. One of the missions of our labs coming up is to prepare more integrators. That is such a great point. It's interesting whenever people reach out to me and they're like, how did you do that voice clone? I just launched a book. It's completely a clone of my voice, my writing style, everything. And the book was about 10 times more successful in its first 5 days than any book I've launched out of 9 books. So I just, wow, that's amazing. Yep. And so I've had people reach out. They're like, okay, so that picture on the front, how many poses did you have to do? And they named like 13 poses and they imagined a green screen. And I'm like, would you believe it was just a text prompt in a tool called Flux? And then I took that one static image and threw it into Sora and just typed, bring her to life. And that's what gave me some of that gorgeous footage that people keep asking me, how did you do this? I had a film company reach out. They're like, who did that for Julia so we can hire them? I'm like, I just played in Sora.
It's just a tool. Yep.
Right. But it's such a good point that we need more integrators aware of how to help companies adapt. Because I think the Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank was quoted on X in a video saying, he was asked on some major news network, CNN or something, what's the number one advancement for companies in the next year, 2025? And his answer was, he said AI 4 times, just leaned into the camera, AI. And he said, you need an integrator. And I was like, wow. So even, top business leaders know that's what you need, and not to make this a plug for first movers. But what we're seeing is this great divide just in normal conversations where it's like, okay, one of the first questions we ask is, are you using ChatGPT? And then we ask this, are you using the paid version? Because it's so different when you're on the paid version. You don't have limits, different experience. And so a lot of people are like, well, no, what's the difference? And so we're like, ooh, where you can go from here is just, it's exponential. But to have a guide on your side, like the value you get just from an hour with my team and I, it's some people have walked away from that 1 hour and they're like, I learned more about where I can go with my business than the last 10 years of trying to do this on the side, being frustrated, not sure. So it's like what you can do today is incredible, but you need that guide if you really want to get ahead and just stop guessing and which tool am I using for which purpose. It's just the biggest difference for your business, your bottom line, everything. And I'm not saying that just as an AI integration company owner here. It's the truth, because when you have that guide, then you know what steps to take. And those steps can be all the difference of, okay, we actually know how to produce all of our marketing materials with generative AI. We can get away from the need to hire 50 more writers who may or may not be using ChatGPT in ways that aren't aligned with our business anyway. So avoiding that whole pitfall, which is, there's a lot of pitfalls, and going straight to a customized process for your business. Exponential.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, and, you think, again, what you and I have both seen, when I was doing independent consulting and now with First Movers, is it's all about onboarding. The technology is there, but it's a new kind of technology, and it's a new set of capabilities that people, first, many don't even understand what the capabilities are.
Yeah.
And then second, once they even understand the capabilities, it's like, okay, what are the implications for practical deployment? And one thing I remember in 2023 was when the Gartner hype cycle had generative AI at the peak, peak of inflated expectations. And last year, basically yesterday, last year was when it was in the trough of disillusionment. And even I was in that trough of disillusionment in the summer, which is just like, man, this is going to take so much longer to deploy and integrate and so on and so forth. But now we're climbing out of the trough of disillusionment, and business is ready for prime time. And one thing that I also like to remind people of is we're basically still at the vacuum tube level of computers. We haven't even moved to the transistor era or the integrated circuit era in terms of where AI can go. When you look at what AI could do hypothetically, just on first principles, so just looking at the math, looking at the basic math and the basic physics, we have about 1,000,000x to 1,000,000,000x more capability that we can squeeze out of artificial intelligence.
Wow.
That is very difficult to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it is. What a great point. That's insanity.
Yep.
Especially because, I get to see what we've done right now. And so wait a minute, like we've automated our sales processes in ways where we've saved likely upwards of 150 hours per week right now as it stands. That's before agents. That's before ASI. That's before operator in the LLM, ChatGPT. That's before. So I'm just like, if that's possible now. And that's the whole idea right behind that name, First Movers, where it's like, if you gain first movers advantage now, and we've been telling this to people in discovery sessions, the likelihood of you being set up for more success when agents, true AGI in all forms, ASI, when all that rolls out, you are going to be so much of a faster adapter to everything if you adapt to what's possible now first in your industry. And that's, to the right people, that is exciting. Because if you're ready for what's coming, oh my gosh, sky's the limit.
I remember one of the more interesting. It was a very short interaction on Twitter, but someone said, "Oh, I'm starting to pay attention to this AI thing, but I'll pay more attention once the indicators are there." And I'm like, "Buddy, what indicators are you looking for?" And he went on to say, like, "Oh, I've been doing technology for 30 years, and AI today is no different from 30 years ago. It's just bigger." And I'm like, "That's not true." But anyways, whatever you got to tell yourself, buddy. And there is that level of cognitive dissonance or coping or whatever the reaction is.
Yeah.
It can be difficult to tell from the outside. But again, that goes back to like people are not ready. Some people are not ready for a new frame. And you have, on the one hand, people that are super, super excited, that are, stars in their eyes. And I was there for a while. And then you have people that are either skeptical or even afraid of it. There's still a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. And people, one of the key things that I still see out there is people like, okay, now they've bought in, like, it's no longer skepticism of AI. It's clearly coming, and how am I going to make ends meet? How am I going to, feed my family and take care of myself? And so those are a little bit more practical than like, Skynet is coming, kind of things. So yeah, there's all kinds of reactions. It's a full spectrum out there. And one thing, just like to put a cap on that, one thing was that I had hoped that with all the communication, because, I was one of the first YouTubers covering generative AI, and now there's dozens of us. I had hoped that with that messaging and communication, there would be some more convergence out there, but instead, AI is actually becoming more divisive, and the more effective. What I've kind of come to terms with is the more effective and useful it becomes, the more divisive it's going to become.
Wow.
Probably for the foreseeable future. In the same way that radio and television became more divisive until we finally just, several generations grew up with it. Like you and I, we grew up with digital TV, and by then nobody cared anymore. But back in the 70s, people were like, television is destroying America. And it's like, now we just kind of laugh at that.
Wow, that's so true. I saw it firsthand when I put out the video literally titled "My AI Clone Wrote a Book." And it's my New Year's gift to you. And the comments I have never seen, and this just corresponds exactly with what you just said. I've never seen the comments more divisive in any video I've put out because of how good AI is. It seemed like there was this knee-jerk reaction for people to either go, "Oh my gosh, this is going to free my voice." There was somebody that's coming back from cancer. She has lost her voice. She's like, "This is amazing. I will be able to actually do all the things I want to do now and not wear out my voice." So there was people that saw that liberation that I see, that you see. And there were people in the comments that I think they refused to even hit play on the Audible sample. If you hit the Audible sample on my book, you will not believe how good it is. It doesn't sound like a clone. It's beautiful. Now, I swear they just didn't even hit play, but they took the time to write an 800-word essay in the comments about how much they enjoyed slave laboring over words.
Yep.
They love the process of blood, sweat, and tears. They see it as something that, I am completely cutting at the neck. I am probably turning Ernest Hemingway over in his grave, yada, 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 yada. And that's their only approach. And it's like, So wait, you enjoy slave labor?
That's quite a logical leap. Yeah. No, I mean, so to add that, because we're both writers, that was actually, kind of one of the things is, you've written a few books, I've written a few books. My first novel is out. I'm working on 2 sequels, actually. Well, a prequel and a sequel. And both of those, I'm actually, the first draft the first several drafts were churned out with the help of AI. But the creative process, and just to sidetrack for a little bit, one thing that I've really come to terms with, particularly after the last draft or 2 that I've done on these, is the process of creativity is still just as arduous. It is still just as involved. It just helps you get something on the page for the first time a little bit quicker. But beyond that, I really kind of the quotation that I keep going back to lately is what Steve Jobs said, which is that the computer is a bicycle for the mind. And generative AI is like a motorcycle for creatives. It'll get you there even faster. But you still got to know what you're doing. And my wife and I run a writing community called Literary Launchpad. And we do have like AI courses on it. Like, how do you write with AI? And when we first launched the community, we're like, do we even touch this? Or do we keep it old fashioned? But some of the first people that we invited, they're like, oh yeah, like everyone writes with AI today, whether or not they say they do. So just address it. And then once we opened that topic to say, hey, is anyone interested in learning how to, use AI to help you write? Some people are like, can you give me a prompt that will write a bestseller? And I'm like, that's not possible.
Oh, boy.
You still have to know the process. You still have to understand, character, story, theme, all that fun stuff, and write your heart out. But at the same time, this is not the first time society has gone through these paroxysms. When the novel originally came out, when the Penny Dreadful came out in Victorian England, they thought that the Penny Dreadful, which is basically just pulp smut that was like mass produced, they thought that was going to destroy society because it was going to cause moral decay and moral rot. Does that sound familiar to anybody? So every time there has been a technological leap, there has also been a creativity leap, and there's also been the same negative reaction that this is clearly the sign that society is going to implode. Now, you could argue that the internet has had a mixed mixed effect on humanity.
Sure.
I think it's a net positive, but at the same time,
Agree.
you look at everything that we're capable of today in terms of communication, personal expression, personal liberty. All those things tend to go up with time, in part to technology, not exclusively to technology. You can certainly go the wrong direction. Look at China, look at North Korea. There are things that you can do wrong, but at the same time, we're doing a lot right. And I think that bears repeating, in my opinion.
Yes, agree completely. Well said. It's like, what's that old phrase? You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, you can, but you shouldn't.
Yes, or that one. And I agree. It's like the net gains are incredible, whenever, and that's a great point about if you write a book with AI, like you still have to know foundations of writing. That's so critical. One of the courses I'm really excited to launch in the labs is, we're calling it an AI comms course. And it's about how to rethink your entire approach with writing with AI, but you still need to know like brevity. You need to know power words to share with your prompting and your patterns of guiding the AI. You need to know what good writing looks like. And so that's all going to be taught in that course. It's a different approach completely, but you still need to know those things. And I love that analogy, a bicycle for the mind. And I feel like with these models getting better and better, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, my favorite. That's how I wrote Liberation Through the Machines. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, I did train it on almost close to 100,000 words of pre-existing material from tons of videos, tons of content I already had. So that definitely gave me a leg up. And then that whole book, which is very, very short, it's a 90-minute read, was written in an hour. I couldn't believe it because it's so good. The content, the flow and everything. But I also, trained it on a book I have, a 50-page book of viral writing formulas. And so it's like that short, punchy hook style and a lot of information about how to write like that for 40 pages. So there's that too. That went into the book. And that's what created that zero excess of fluff. When you pick up that book and read it, it's riveting from the minute you start reading it, which is important if you want a book that's actually going to sell, go places. You don't want that dry ChatGPT exclamation mark. That's bad writing. So what you said is so important. Like you have to know that. If you don't know that, you're going to be like, oh, these exclamation marks sound awesome. Let me publish this book. And then you wonder why no one wants to read that garbage.
Yep. Oh yeah.
You have to know the difference.
Well, and you and this, so I want to take a step back and say that, whether you're writing fiction or whether you're writing marketing copy or anything else, any kind of domain, anything that requires domain expertise, you're really going to benefit the more that you bring to it, pre-existing expertise and experience. These are just new tools. It's like, when way back in the day, if you were a carpenter, the first thing that you learned was how to make and maintain your own tools. Now carpenters don't have to do that because you can just run to the hardware store. And it's like, would you be upset with a master cabinet maker if they didn't make their own tools to, engrave your cabinets? No, you expect them to use the modern tools of the trade. And AI is really no different, whether you're doing for-profit business, whether you're doing art and creativity. The same thing happened when digital painting and digital art came up with Photoshop. Is a whole bunch of purists said that's not real art. You just did it on a computer. And then, there's still people saying, AI is categorically incapable of true art. But at the same time, like I made a few songs, like my wife and I, our dog died a couple months ago, and I made a song that was very particular to us, as part of our mourning process or as part of our grieving process. And that is something that is just, I was not capable of. I'm not a musician and I don't have that skill set, but I do know how to use the AI to help me realize that personal expression. So is that true art? I mean, it means something to us and we love listening to the music that we've made. And we also, the images and the fiction and everything. It's just new tools for the trade, really.
Yes, 100%. There's no better way to see it, I think, than that. So one point to wrap on, I wanted to bring up quantum. Because, we had this huge announcement from Google with the Willow chip that they say will be rolled out commercially within the next 5 years. How do you see that playing into what's coming? Quantum computing, this capability of processing compute in multiple universes, 100 septillion years faster than any classical computing process in 5 minutes. That's insane. How do you see that affecting where we're going?
It's difficult to say because the two primary things that quantum is predicted to impact is material science and mathematics or cryptography, and it's the kind of thing where, put it this way, the paradigm shift that would represent if it is deployed and it performs as we hope that it will is it's beyond our imagination in order to really understand what that could mean. Because here's an example of what I mean. When you look at, for instance, the tiles on the space shuttle, it was high density carbon, I think is the name of the material. That was a space age material that was just not even really conceived of, and they had to really kind of brute force their way to make this ultralight, ceramic tile that could survive, 3,000 degrees or 5,000 degrees, however much it has to survive. And we kind of take that for granted. But when you can solve any material, like if you say, hey, I need a substance or, a chip or whatever, if it is hypothetically possible, then you can figure out how to make it. And that means that you solve, because when I say materials, medicines are materials, processors are materials. There's a scene from Star Trek where they're looking for transparent aluminum. That's possible in this future, where it's just like, hey, I need something that is as strong as titanium but transparent. Okay, cool. Well, we can figure that out. And that example is going to be seen as very cute and naive. Put it this way: in 15 years, that'll be a high schooler's project, is to figure out how to make a transparent titanium, shell or whatever. That's how trivial that level of computation could become in the long term.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. I think you landed on a very good point to wrap. It's hard to imagine what's even coming our way. And so the best first step, is what can you do with the tools you have now? And how do you harness those to get ahead? That is what we call the first advantage. So that would be my advice to folks listening in 2025, which you obviously are. So as you go forward in this year, how do you harness what you have right now? Don't wait for ASI. Don't wait for quantum. We know all these things are coming, but what can you do with what you have right now? What model can you jump into? What process can you build with it? How can you completely reform everything you're doing? And sometimes it just takes a different mindset where you're open to ditching old practices, letting go of old identities. Don't discredit that and say, oh, well, that's not a big deal. I can just step into this. Because, some of the people we talk to, while they're fully ready to embrace this, sometimes there's that feeling of, am I letting go of who I was? Because I was a Photoshop designer. I was a business owner that did it all manually. But I will say, Dave, most of the people we talk to are so ready to ditch that. You wouldn't even... You're like, so if that's you listening, that's great. I think the best way you could step into the new age is with excitement, is with the ability to dream. And that's one of the questions we ask is like, let's just dream together. What would it look like if you never had to do this process again that you've been doing for 20 years, that takes you so much time, that you hate? What if you could let that go? What would you do? And what people start to dream about is pretty amazing. We've had people tell us, I want to run a mastermind. I want to help people. I have this unique skill set I've never told anyone about. I want to launch this entirely new business project, etc., a new division of their entire company that, these are things they never even thought they would get to in their entire life. But it was like part of their legacy. And so if we have the opportunity to do that, that's pretty freaking incredible. So how do you embrace automation and AI this year to your advantage and get way ahead so that you can really do what you want to do? Dave, anything else you'd add as we wrap up?
Yeah, I'll end with kind of a mantra that I think works for both business and personal life, and that is missionary, not mercenary. Having a mission, whether, like you said, just let go and dream. What is the change in the world that you want to see, rather than just doing it for short term? I just want money, or I want to, be more attractive and get the jet or whatever. Having that purpose. Because, just as a personal example, I use Claude Styles and I have all kinds of personas. So whatever kind of advice I need, it's like I have I have a council of AIs that I can talk to that have all kinds of different personalities and expertise to help guide me. And I'm already living in that future. The only difference is they're not embodied yet. I don't have like a robot that I can go talk to, but it's like whatever personification, whatever sage or leader mentor that I need, I already got it. And so just really kind of adopting that dreamer's mentality and adopting that missionary kind of mentality of, okay, cool, this is how I want to change the world. Let's go do it. And that's really like, you just start there and the rest will work itself out.
Yes, that's so good. So good. Well, thank you guys for subscribing, listening to our podcast, being here for the journey with us, and really doing yourself the favor of learning about what's coming your way and diving deep. Even, I have some people, Julia, half the time, I don't know what you're talking about. And then some other people are like, can you go deeper? So we'll try to make these as deep as we can. The goal is to bring the leaders of AI on the show to talk about what's coming, how to get ready, and give you new ideas you've never thought of. So welcome to 2025. We're here with you for all of it. And I look forward to what's coming our way. You can subscribe to this show, Leaders of AI, streaming on every platform. We'll see you on the next episode.
Take care.